More than 60 years ago, three inmates, Frank Lee Morris and the brothers Clarence and John Anglin, pulled off an incredible escape from Alcatraz, the forbidding maximum security prison situated on an island in San Francisco Bay. At that time, Alcatraz was thought to be escape-proof. During its 29 years as a federal prison, it housed some of the country's most infamous criminals, including Al Capone and James Whitey Bulger. But as a matter of fact, Morris and the Anglin brothers would challenge that belief in the most daring way. On the night of June 11, 1962, they orchestrated an incredibly elaborate plan. Over months, they used stolen spoons and tools to dig small holes in their cell walls, carefully covering the damage with fake vents. They also crafted fake heads to fool the guards during nightly head counts. Once their escape route was ready, they crawled through the holes in their cells, climbed plumbing pipes to the roof, and slipped past fences to reach the shore. There, they launched a makeshift raft they had sewn together from over 50 rubber raincoats. By the next morning, they had mysteriously vanished. Guards found pillows under their bedclothes and the fake heads with painted eyes staring back at them. The raft was later discovered on a nearby island, resulting in one of the greatest mysteries in prison history. To this day, nobody knows if they successfully escaped or perished in the treacherous waters of San Francisco Bay. John Dillinger was a name that sent chills down the spines of law enforcement across the country, thanks to his move in 1934, which would cement his place in history. Dillinger was captured in 1934 and sent to the Crown Point Jail in Indiana, a supposedly secure facility. On the night of March 3, 1934, Dillinger pulled off a stunt that seemed incredibly unlikely. He used a wooden gun, carved and painted to resemble a real firearm, to overpower the guards. It was all part of his plan to escape. He forced them into the jail's central office, resulting in a tense standoff. Once he had control of the situation, Dillinger took the keys to the jail and freed himself. But his escape didn't stop there. Dillinger didn't rush for the door. Instead, he strolled out of the jail with calm confidence, as if it were just another ordinary day. He even had the keys to the jail, catching the guards completely off guard in the process. By the time anyone figured out what had happened, Dillinger was already long gone. The escape was so smooth and incredibly bold that it left the authorities questioning how they could have let him slip through their fingers. Dillinger didn't stop there. He continued to rob banks and elude the law across the Midwest. And even though his life ended in a violent shootout later on, this escape remains one of the most daring and unforgettable prison breaks in history. Ted Bundy, responsible for the murders of over 30 young women across the United States in the 1970s, managed to escape custody not once, but twice. Bundy's first escape took place in June while he was held at a Colorado courthouse. Left unsupervised in the library to prepare for his trial, he saw his chance and took it. Without hesitation, Bundy jumped from a second-story window. Despite injuring his ankle during the leap, he managed to stay on the run for 6 days before being caught. But Bundy wasn't one to give up so easily. Bundy's second escape was nothing short of phenomenal. In December 1977, while awaiting trial for murder in Glenwood Springs Jail, he devised an audacious plan. He deliberately lost weight, slimming down enough to squeeze through a small hole in the ceiling of his cell. The hole led to a crawl space which Bundy used to navigate through the jail's infrastructure and into the warden's apartment. There he stole civilian clothes and with unnerving confidence walked right out the front door to freedom. Bundy then traveled by plane, train, and car, eventually making his way to Florida. 2 months later, he was arrested once again. In 1989, justice caught up with him, and he was executed for his heinous crimes. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was one of the most powerful drug lords in history, infamous for both his criminal empire and daring prison escapes. As the founder of the Sinaloa cartel, he masterminded drug operations across the United States and Europe, using ingenious tunnels to smuggle goods. In 1993, El Chapo was arrested and sentenced to 20 years. But in 2001, he bribed guards to walk out of a maximum security prison, an escape that cemented his legendary status. However, his most incredible escape came in 2015, after being recaptured in 2014. This time, his associates orchestrated a plan straight out of a Hollywood thriller. On July 11, 2015, prison guards last saw the drug lord near the shower area in his cell at around 9 p.m. Personnel reached his cell after failing to appear on the surveillance camera for 25 minutes, only to discover him gone. Upon investigation, they discovered that El Chapo escaped through a 1-mile-long tunnel. This tunnel connected his prison shower area to a faraway construction site. The tunnel was equipped with ventilation, lighting, and even a motorcycle mounted on rails to speed up his escape. El Chapo slipped through a small hole in the shower area of his cell, descended into the tunnel, and disappeared into the night. The sheer scale of the operation and the resources involved stunned the world. While he was eventually recaptured in 2016, El Chapo's escapes remain some of the most audacious in history. Jack Sheppard, an infamous English thief from the 18th century, is remembered not just for his crimes but for his unfathomable ability to escape from even the most secure prisons of his time. A skilled carpenter turned criminal, Sheppard became a folk hero for outsmarting authorities again and again. His most daring escape took place in 1724 from the notorious Newgate prison in London. Locked in a heavily guarded cell, Sheppard used his cunning and craftsmanship to break free. First, he removed the iron bars from his cell window, using tools he had secretly smuggled in. Then, he climbed up a chimney, squeezed through a narrow gap, and used a rope made from his bedding to scale the prison walls. What made this escape even more astonishing was that Sheppard did it all while shackled in irons. His agility and determination baffled authorities and captivated the public, who began to see him as a symbol of defiance against an oppressive system. Although his freedom was fleeting, he was soon recaptured and ultimately executed. Jack Sheppard's legendary escape cemented his place in history as one of the greatest prison escape artists of all time. Frank Abagnale is widely regarded as one of the most infamous con artists in history, a man whose incredible exploits spanned a wide range of crimes, from identity theft and credit card fraud to elaborate check forgeries. However, it was his prison escapes that truly captured the public's imagination, making him the stuff of legends. In the 1960s, Frank Abagnale embarked on an international crime spree, fooling people across the globe with a series of audacious identities. He managed to convince people he was a pilot, a doctor, and even a lawyer. His expertise in impersonating professionals was so convincing that he not only swindled millions, but he also flew planes as a fake pilot without ever having flown a plane before. Eventually, his crimes caught up with him, and he was arrested. In 1969, after an international manhunt, Abagnale was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. But even behind bars, Abagnale's knack for deception didn't diminish. What followed was a series of escapes that were almost cinematic in their execution. The first escape took place in 1971 when he was being held at a detention center in Atlanta, Georgia. Posing as a prison inspector, he tricked the guards into believing he was there to inspect the facility. He even had official-looking documents and a convincing uniform. Once the guards allowed him to leave, believing he was on a work assignment, he simply walked away, blending in with the crowd. This escape was nothing short of a masterstroke of deception. But Abagnale wasn't content to stop there. His second escape was even more daring. While serving his sentence, he pretended to be severely ill and was transferred to a hospital for treatment. Once there, he made his move. He climbed out of a bathroom window and disappeared without a trace. His escape was so smooth and calculated that even the hospital staff had no idea what had happened until it was far too late. Remarkably, Abagnale's time as a fugitive didn't last long. He was eventually recaptured after another series of close calls, but by then, he had become a media sensation. His story of evading capture with such ingenuity was almost too unbelievable to be true. Eventually, Frank Abagnale's criminal career came to an end, and he was sentenced to 12 years in prison for his crimes. However, his story didn't end with a life sentence behind bars. While serving time, he struck a deal with the U.S. government, agreeing to help the FBI and law enforcement agencies by teaching them how to prevent fraud and improve security. His unique knowledge and experience made him a valuable asset in the fight against crime. To this day, Frank Abagnale remains a celebrated figure in popular culture, with movies, books, and documentaries telling the story of his incredible life.